Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Radio Networks on Sunday, August 25th, 2019. This is episode 1621. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Lastpass, the #1 most preferred password manager. Just remember your master password and let Lastpass remember the rest. Visit lastpass.com/twit. Hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Yeah, time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches, all that computery jazz, that technology jazz. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number, 888-827-5536. It's toll-free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Outside that area, you can still reach me. Of course, you just have to use Skype out or something like that. Call 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. Did you get your Apple card yet? What? Apple is you know what? What a lesson in marketing Apple has been. Apple can do anything, and with marketing, the Apple community, fanboys, the Apple community will get all excited and, oh, I got to have my Apple card. It's just a credit card. And the funny thing is, Apple made it brilliant white titanium, the physical card. And people who are getting their cards are getting a notice. Whatever you do, don't put it in your wallet. The leather can stain it. Denim, don't put it in your jeans pocket. Denim can stain it. Oh, well, okay. I'll sandwich it between two credit cards. No, don't let any other credit cards touch it. They can scratch it. Okay. Yeah, that's very Apple, isn't it? We're going to make a beautiful... We're not going to... See, there are some designers. I think this goes back to the Bauhaus movement of the 1920s that say form should follow function. Function first, then form. Your form should reflect the function of the thing. And for a long time, I think Apple was kind of like that. In fact, I remember the story that Steve Jobs, when he first saw the new Bondi Blue iMacs, he'd just come back to Apple after his years in the desert. And Johnny Ive said, "Look, Steve, I've made this thing for you. It's a iMac, the color of the beach at Bondi Blue, at Bondi Beach, the color of the water at Bondi Beach." And Steve said, "That's nice, Johnny, but where's the handle?" What? It should have a handle because people will pick it up. Oh, okay. Back to the drawing board at great cost. They put a handle on it. See, I think that's form follows function. Of course, it was a 30-pound computer you probably wouldn't want to pick up. But anyway, I guess that's form follows function. But see, this credit card that Apple made, this is the exact opposite. It's exact opposite. It's form first. Functionality be darned. We're just going to make a beautiful titanium credit card. It'll little details like, there's a mag strip on the back. There has to be, I'm sorry to say, but yeah, they didn't want to. I'm sure they have a chip in it too, but they put a mag strip on the back. But the mag strip is indented into the material of the card. It's what's the opposite of embossed? It's a word you don't hear as much often as embossed. The opposite of embossing, which is raising things, like raised letters. What's the opposite? Embed? Is that the word? Feels like there should be a more fancy word than embedded. Opposite. I'm going to Merriam-Webster. Opposite of embossed. No, it's giving me nothing. Imploded, inlaid, stamped, submerged. The chat room knows. Mashed, recessed. No, there's some sort of designery word that no one ever uses. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It is that. It is embedded into the card instead of embossed. Your name, however, is embossed. You realize then now Apple has to do at least 2 manufacturing steps, maybe many more, to make a titanium credit card. It's so Apple. And whatever you do, don't use it like a credit card. Don't put it in your wallet or your jeans or put it next to other credit cards. No, don't do that. Squooshed, debossed. That's the word. Thank you. Polar Fant in our chat room has found the correct name. The opposite of embossed is debossed. There's a little something you could stick in your trivia hat. Put it away. Never use it. Yeah, you have to keep it in a sleeve, I guess. I don't know what you're going to do. That's crazy. Got my new Galaxy Note 10 Plus. This is a pretty phone. It has a kind of shimmery back. That's one of the choices. You can get it black, white. I think there's a blue, and then there's a shimmery color. They have a funny name for it. Debossed. That's it. And it's all pretty until you put it in a case, and then you'll never see it again. Nice phone. I'll tell you what, after thinking about this, we know we have new iPhones coming out, probably the 11. Some people are saying it's going to be the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. It will have 3 lenses, kind of like Samsung's done this year with its Galaxy S10 and the Galaxy Note 10. 3 lenses, wide, telephoto, and normal. And I think that's kind of nice. I find it very useful. So Apple's going to do that. And then Google, after Apple does their phone in September, the Google phone, Pixel 4, will come out, probably October. Honestly, I think the Pixel 4 might be the sleeper, the one to get, because Google's doing these amazing things with photography, The camera, even though they don't have, on the current Pixel 3, they don't have 3 lenses, but it's still able to do so much more. Even, I just saw a roundup of photos from the brand new Note 10 compared to the almost year-old Pixel 3 XL. And the Pixel 3 won in almost every case, especially low light, night light. So, I was mentioning the Apple Card. One of the things the Apple Card, it's really, I think, for Apple to get people to use Apple Pay more. So they put in special little effects, software effects and stuff for Apple Pay. For instance, I used my Apple Card because I wanted to just see what would happen. I used my Apple Card at the grocery store yesterday. And it didn't change the color of the Apple, the physical Apple Card. I don't actually even have that, Maybe it will. I don't think it will. That'll come in a couple of days. But the digital card turned kind of icky brown. I'm told there are different colors for the different things you buy, and your card can get a rainbow hue. Kind of like, what does that remind me of? Oh, yeah, the back of my Note 10. We're all like magpies now, or monkeys. We're just, colors, sparkles. Companies know that. Apple is so good at marketing. They were able to take this, what is basically a normal everyday credit card, and make it an object of desire. An object of desire for the Apple fan club. That's how you make money. Used to be, in my day, when in the early days of technology, you made money by creating something incredibly useful that would change your life, like the iPhone. That was a big thing, yeah. Now, because we've got the iPhone, it's hard to find the next thing that's going to transform stuff. So we're at the stage in technology that cars got in the 50s, where there really wasn't much more you could do. I mean, you're not going to move the accelerator pedal onto the left. You can't, you're not going to put the steering wheel in the middle. You pretty much know what the car is going to be. So you have to start, now you're focusing on frippery and frills like fins. That's how, the Cadillac, how you knew you had the new Cadillac, because it had fins. Now, you don't have the fins. It made it, I guess you may be thinking, I made it more aerodynamic. No, I didn't do anything. But now with fins, we're in the fin phase of technology, where it's just cosmetic, like, the card glows brown when you buy groceries. I don't even think that's a good choice of colors. Green would have been nice. Brown? Really? 8888 Ask Leo. Kim is here. She'll be answering your calls, putting you on the air. We're going to go to the phones in just a bit. Sam Abuelsamid, our car guy, coming up at the bottom of the hour. He knows about fins. Normally, Chris Marquardt joins us on Sunday. He is stuck.
Sam in Chris's spot.
Oh, we're going to move Sam. Oh, because he's doing the Lincoln Aviator, and he's going to show up. Okay. So a little change in the program. Thank you, John. Normally, Sam is on in about 15 minutes. We're going to have to defer him till next hour because he's driving up in the brand new Lincoln Aviator, which he's up here to test drive. They like to. These car companies like to bring the car writers up to the wine country, the Napa Valley, for their test drives because it's pretty. So they brought them all up to Napa Valley. Sam will be in studio. That's exciting in just a little bit. Maybe we'll get some of his impressions on the new Lincoln Aviator. I don't know what's new. It glows brown. I don't know. I don't know what's new about it. Maybe it's got fins. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. 888-827-5536. The website, free to use, techguylabs.com. Kimmy, don't take no Schaffer. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the star of our show, the unbreakable Kimmy Schaffer, phone angel. Hello, Kim.
Good morning.
I love it that you have such a big introduction. That's so great. So great. I'll get some applause in here. And then we'll really be cheering. People going, ah!
Oh, well, you've got that machine. I'm sure
I've
you
got a
have
machine.
that. I'm sure you already have applause.
Did you know that this is the 80th anniversary of The Wizard of Oz?
No, I didn't.
If you go to Google and you search for The Wizard of Oz, they have a little Easter egg in there. So the trick is on the Google site, if you go to google.com, they'll have and search again. You have to search for The Wizard of Oz. You'll see the ruby slippers sparkling on the right. Click that.
There is no place like home.
And then it taps it, and then it swirls around just like in the movie, and it turns into a black and white search page.
They have a lot of time on their hands.
That's
Google,
exactly the reaction I have when I see stuff like this. Is like, don't you guys have something to do important? You got to figure between that.
When you work there, they don't ever want you to leave, so they bring in meals and have massages and stuff. But
maybe
now
now
I see what they're producing.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe they just nobody leaves, so they've got to do something in their spare time. I mean, it's cool. I'm not knocking it.
I like their little things that the Google Doodle.
The Google Doodle. This is like the Google Doodle, but and people were saying, "Oh, did you see it? Did you see it?" And so I went to Google.com, and there's no Doodle today.
No Doodle. And I like the Pac-Man when you could play Pac-Man.
Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that fun? Yeah.
Is it meaningful? Do we need to have it? But it's fun.
No. It's also the 24th anniversary of the release of Windows 95.
Don't tell me that. That makes me feel old.
Yeah. Windows 95 came out 24 years ago. What else? There's another anniversary today, but probably something with the moon or something. I don't know. I don't remember. So you've been answering the phones since the wee hours of the morning. See, I read. You get up early. You come in here. You do work. I'm reading the Old Farmer's Almanac. This is the difference between you and me. You're doing something
read that?
constructive. Don't you buy that every year?
No.
Well, how do you know when to put your crops in?
I just do it in March or April.
Oh, that complicated, huh?
I just, buy. When the tomato plants start showing up at Costco, I know it's time to start planting them.
Oh, Costco's taking the place of the Old Farmer's Almanac. Probably
or
just
Home
as well.
Depot or any of those.
Yeah,
places.
anywhere.
Yeah.
It's time for starts. Your vegetable starts.
There you go.
Who should I start with?
How about Jerry in Westminster, Maryland?
Jerry
line 3.
in line 3, Westminster, Maryland. Hello, Jerry. Thank you, Kim. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hey, Leo.
Hey.
Bought a new Mac Mini back in January.
I like those new ones. I really like what they did.
It was nice. Turned it on, and it's been on pretty much ever since.
For 8 months. Wow, that's impressive.
Except in July, I shut it down. And when I shut it down, that was it. No power, no nothing.
It never came back?
It never came back. So I called Apple and got an appointment to the Apple store, took it in. Now, the Apple store from where I live is a good 2 hours round trip.
Oh,
2 hours
yikes.
round trip. So,
what a bummer.
and they wouldn't let me mail it or anything like that. So I took it into the Apple store. They thought it was a power supply, but it ended up being the logic board. And I think Apple considers that's like the motherboard, correct?
That's what they call a motherboard, exactly.
Yeah, that's what they call them.
Us old-timers call it the mother of all boards.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So they replaced that, and I brought it home. The drive was erased, so I restored it.
Yeah, always a good thing to remember when you bring in the computer or phone to repair is there's no guarantee your drive will come back with its stuff on it.
And that was fun. I had Time Machine, so I restored it.
Good.
After the restore, the first thing I did was went into about this Mac, and my 16 gig machine was now an 8 gig machine.
Oh, man.
So I called directly to the store, and they said they didn't understand how that could happen and all this.
Oh,
stuff.
BS. Somebody didn't put the other SIM in. Okay.
So they said, we got one set aside for you, so another hour back. But I took it down there. They wanted me to leave it, and I said, no, you can put this
Leave it.
down.
Put it in. It takes 3 seconds.
Yeah, well, they said it took an hour, and it took an hour. So anyhow, so I brought it home. After that, so far they'd had it like over 2 weeks at that point. But I turned it on, everything's worked, and for a week and a half. And the other morning, I went to the computer, it said that there was an error and it restarted. Well, it was locked up, and I tried to restart it, and it sometimes it would go all the way into the operating system, but if it did, it would maybe give me 10 seconds of mouse movement, and it would lock again.
Oh my goodness!
And so I thought, well, I'm going to do because I've got backup, so I'll do the Command Option R and reload it off the board.
Yeah,
like, you can do that.
Yeah,
but it failed at that too. It got through it, let me join the network, and then once it restarted and put the Apple on the screen, it never hardly got through that bar, and it locked up, restarted. And it tried to go back in, so that's telling me it's a very low-level problem.
Yeah, I wonder if they have lemon laws in Maryland.
That's exactly what my question is, because after we get off the phone, I've got an appointment to go back down today, and I know they're going to say you're going to have to leave this thing. It's probably the motherboard, because those things, like if it's a new one, usually if you get 30 days, it'll last a good while. But in the burn-in period, that's when you're going to get that failure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Your problem is about computers. Maryland has a lemon law, but it applies to cars.
Right.
I think you should say, hey, I think I got a lemon here, and I want a brand new one. I think that's reasonable. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. You kind of.
So anyhow, I guess my question.
The problem. Here's how the deal, and maybe it's a little changed now. Originally, till recently, the genius that you go to see had a lot of leeway.
Yeah, I noticed that's changed. It seems like.
Yeah, they may have cracked down on him because it was costing them money. Used to be if the genius liked you and he said, "Yeah, this isn't right," he would go and he'd get a new one.
Well, my plan today is to be direct but pleasant.
Yeah, never. Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, direct but pleasant.
Demanding stuff.
No, be understanding, but you also need to tell them your tale of woe. This is not right.
I'm trying to run a business. I said I'm trying to run a business with this thing. I'm in their business files, and last year I bought 2 high-end iPhones, 2 Series 4 watches, an iPad Pro. I also have another laptop from them, and so I've spent well over $5,000, but you would think that would carry a little bit of clout, and they know because I bought all that from the online Apple store, so they can look at that. But I don't know if I can say, gee, I think it's time for you just to replace this thing, or I would be okay with certified refurbished, because sometimes hands-on stuff is better than new out of the box.
I wouldn't say that to them. Just say, I want a CRU. I want a complete replacement unit.
Yeah. And
say, it's time, guys, it's a 2-hour round trip for me. Right. This has become more and more of a hassle. I'm losing money. Is there any way you can just give me a replacement unit, because this is not working? And
I know it's like a 512 gig hard drive and 16 gig of RAM. So that's like nothing special. They should, that's. But even if they had to ship me one this week, that would be better than waiting another 2 weeks. And that they evidently don't keep logic boards in their repair centers because they didn't have one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the Mac Mini is a low volume computer for them.
Probably. But it's been great. It's a great machine.
On principle, on paper, it's great. And I should say we have the new Mac Mini, which we use as a kind of a Skype machine, and it's been very reliable. And I think it's always on. I don't think we ever turn it off.
Right.
So you got a lemon.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll just play that end of it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'll also mention that I talked about this on a nationwide tech show.
Yeah.
They're waiting to see how you handle it.
Yeah, good. Always use my name. Absolutely. And then tweet to @AppleSupport or DM maybe, depending on how angry you are. If you tweet, it's in public. And again, yes, civil is always important. Because you don't want to be painted as a crank. You want to be painted as a good customer who's Yeah, it gets you nowhere. It just makes enemies. But you're a good customer and you deserve better. And this is you need them to fix this because you don't need another ride to Baltimore or wherever.
That's what I'll use. I'm a good customer and I deserve better.
Yeah,
that's a good line. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Leo, for your help.
I am sorry that happened to you. I really am.
And I actually talked to you about a couple months ago. I help seniors with their computer.
Oh, Jerry, this is you.
Yeah,
you really, of all people, deserve better.
And see, I work on Windows machines, but I have all Mac.
Yeah.
And Apple stuff.
I have to say, my general impression is that Apple quality control has taken a nosedive.
Yeah, and the Apple Store is not what it was when the iPhone 3 came out.
My wife has an appointment with the Genius Bar today. She's got an iPhone. She bought it when it came out almost a year ago, and it's never been right. And lately, it's been dying every day. She has to do a hard reboot. And I'll be very curious what what should happen is they should go to the shelf, pull another one, and say, here, take this instead.
Yeah.
I think those days might be gone at Apple. I'm sorry to say.
I think so.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you do with seniors. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And you have a nice day.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Normally, Sam Abuelsamid would be here to talk about cars. He's going to be here next hour because he's in town. He's driving a new Lincoln, the Aviator. He can tell us a little bit about the technology in the new Aviator. And, we talk about car tech every week with Sam. He's great. So if you're tuning in to hear Sam, stay tuned. He'll be in 1 hour. Meanwhile, that means I get more time with you. Danny in Prescott, Arizona. Hello, Danny.
Good morning. I've got a little problem with a map app on my iPhone. Actually, I think it's more with my car than it is with the app itself. I own 3 cars. I have a Honda Civic from 2018. I have a Sonata Hybrid from 2012, and I have a Volkswagen Beetle from 2003. That's my favorite car. But when I use the map apps, they do great on the Honda, and they do great on the Volkswagen. But when I use them on the hybrid, the Sonata Hybrid, it doesn't do good. I'll be driving along and, you'll look at your phone to see where you're at. And all of a sudden you look and it says on the map that you're supposed to be turning left. Well, you turned left 2 miles ago. And and I was wondering, is there an issue with the hybrid drive that affects how these map apps work, or is there another app I could get because I have Google app?
Actually, it's interesting that it works fine on the other cars and it doesn't work on that one. I have a couple of hypotheses. GPS requires line of sight to the sky, to the satellites in the sky, and the way it works, as you probably know, is it triangulates 3 or more satellites to figure your exact position. And it's actually amazing that it works. It does it by measuring the amount of time it takes to get to that satellite and the position of the satellite in the sky. That gives it both the exact position of the satellite and it gives it the distance to the satellite. And with that information, you can use geometry to figure out what your location is. And they do it even though Einstein's theory of relativity throws a bunch of error into it. They actually have to do error correction for the motion and the distance of the satellites, which is remarkable. But it all works to give you a location within a few feet. However, it does require that radio signal. So I have a couple of theories. One, you might fix it by repositioning your phone in the car, trying a different position in the car, maybe closer to the windshield so it's a better line of sight to the sky. It does need line of sight to the sky. That's why GPS doesn't work in garages and tunnels.
Well, on the hybrid itself, the phone is on the dash.
Okay.
It's free to the other or to the windshield. And
the other possibility is that the electric engine in the car is causing some interference.
Well, that's what I was asking. That was the question I had. I was wondering if you've heard of this before with other people with
not with GPS. Although my Tesla didn't have an AM radio in it, and Tesla told me that's because the engines cause too much interference with the radio. There are some EVs that have AM radios, but I think you probably have to go to greater lengths to shield it. So that's interesting. That might be a data point that confirms that there's something about the electric engine.
Well, see, I have Waze, I have Google Maps.
Yeah, because and if it's the same with all the software, it's not the programs, it's the information the program's getting from the GPS.
Right.
And I'm looking, somebody posted a Prius chat where somebody's having trouble with their GPS, and I don't know if it's, Prius is also a hybrid electric vehicle. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it's interesting is that you'll get out of that car, get into the Volkswagen, for instance, and it'll just work. It works perfectly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's exactly what happens.
So we know it's not that the phone needs to be recalibrated or there's something wrong with the phone. Really, this is a classic case of troubleshooting where you eliminate all the variables, and the only variable that seems to make any difference is the different car, the different vehicle. So I have to think it's something about the EV. It could be, as I said, it could be there's more metal, that there's something blocking the signals. But if you're keeping it in the dashboard, try shifting it to other positions in the car, because if it's RF from the motor, that will also vary depending on where it is. So just as an experiment, see if you can get it to work better in other positions in the car.
Okay.
But it could be tinted windows. Do you have tinted windows in that car?
Yeah, but I have them in the Honda and the Volkswagen also.
Well, if there's metal in the tinting, that can also block the radio. So it sounds pretty. It's pretty clear that it's specific to that car, and it sounds pretty clear it's not the phone. It has something to do with the GPS accuracy in that vehicle. That's really a great question. I mean, I love it. And all I'm doing is logical deductions. But I do know that the interference from an electric motor can impede AM radio. So maybe try it if you turn off the car. Remember, the other thing about GPS is that in order to know your location, the first time you use GPS in a particular locale, it'll build up something called an almanac. It actually stores information about what satellites are visible and what the positions of those satellites and the distances and so forth. That almanac from then on makes it faster to get to geolocate. But the first time you use a GPS in a location, it takes a while. If your GPS isn't working well in that car and you just pull over, it might take a minute or two to get your location. So be patient. But once it gets location, if it's now accurate when you're not driving, when the engine's not on, I think we've narrowed it down.
Yeah, and I tried that at work where I would check the GPS at the time. And one other thing that I noticed, too, is compared to the Volkswagen and the Honda, is that in those two cars, the voice directions will work, but it won't work in the hybrid.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, it's
What
almost.
do you mean won't work? You don't get them?
Yeah, I can't hear it. The voice doesn't come across like it does when it's in the Volkswagen or it's in the Honda.
Oh, this is a puzzlement. This is interesting, though. There's definitely something about this other car.
Yeah, and like I said, the difference in the drivetrain is
That or the window tinting or the metal in the car. There's something about the car that is making your phone act up. You could try it with a friend's phone, see if that's better. That's a really interesting conundrum.
Right.
One other thing, somebody in the chat room kind of said that maybe, I don't know, might have something to do with it. What was it? I'm looking back. Oh, shoot. They said something I thought would be worth trying. How about like streaming music? Does that work? Does your internet work? Oh, I know what they said. Download the maps offline. Maybe it's the data, not the GPS that's lacking. So download the maps offline. See if that fixes it. Then that will tell you it's data that's the problem. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Yeah, that was Mike B's suggestion. I think that's an interesting one. So something's wrong. It's probably a radio. Could be the GPS. Could be the data, right? Do you notice, like streaming music? Does that work okay? Things like that?
I don't stream music.
Okay. So, So when you're at home on your Wi-Fi, you can, with Google Maps, download the map so that it's local, so you don't need data. See if that helps.
Okay.
If that does, then it would be then it's the 3G and LTE that don't work as well in that car.
Right. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the way GPS works, especially when I try to use it on a golf course. I keep trying to get my yardages, and I know they're wrong because I never hit it right. But when I'm talking about when it comes to this becomes frustrating, especially.
Oh no, you need I couldn't live anymore without turn-by-turn directions. I don't know how to drive anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely need it.
Sometimes. And it works sometimes, but then, like I said, I'll go for like 3-4 miles, and it's keeping up, and then stop.
Yeah.
And then it just stops.
Yeah, that sounds like the GPS is not updating.
Right. Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But why? That's the question.
Uncle Bick in our chat room says, my friend has a Hyundai Elantra, and I think that thing is just this side of a Faraday cage, which actually is good, except for radio reception. I've gotten out of my car, into her car, and just about lost signal where I had it before. How's your cell signal? Does that work okay?
Cell signal works like normal.
Okay. You're able to take calls and all that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a fascinating... There's a reason.
Yes.
There's a reason, but what it is, I don't know. I think we've provided you with at least my best guess and our chat room's best guesses about what it could be. Good luck. Let us know if you find out.
Thank you, Leo.
My pleasure. Great question. That's the question of the day. I love that one. Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. It's interesting. A number of people in the chat room saying things like, well, Web 1077 says the Lexus hybrid, also an electric motor, blocks Waze, the nav app, to where the network is often offline, even though the car has Wi-Fi active. Interesting. Some window tinting has metal in it, cheap window tinting. That could be it. That's a really interesting question. That's our puzzler for the day. I sent off Jay with some experiments to do, and maybe he can come up with a reason for all of that. Renee, Vancouver, British Columbia. Hello, Renee.
Oh, hi.
Hi, welcome.
Okay, so thanks for taking my call. And my question is around VPN.
Okay.
So I've heard a few times that if you're using a public access Wi-Fi point, it's a good idea to use a VPN for security purposes. But a colleague of mine said you don't need to because most websites are HTTPS now.
Your colleague is very smart. That's exactly right. However, it doesn't mean you don't need to. There are other things that VPNs can do. But one of the main reasons people use VPNs is because in the old days when you were logged into your web email, for instance, like Gmail or Yahoo Mail, or when you were visiting your Facebook, the data was being sent in the clear over those airwaves. So a bad guy who's sitting next to you, you know, that guy in the hoodie with the sunglasses on that's sitting next to you in the coffee shop, could actually be looking at your email or looking at your Facebook. In fact, there was a well-known attack called Fire Sheep that was widely used in coffee shops where, you're in a coffee shop, you're on Facebook. I can see you're on Facebook. When you first go to Facebook, the first time you have to log in, but after that on that computer, you don't log in anymore. It just opens up, right? That's because Facebook puts a special token, a little number on your hard drive. And then when you go back to Facebook, it requests that token. It's yours and yours alone. And it says, oh, yeah, great to see you again, Renee. You don't have to log in. Well, the problem was that token was being sent through the airwaves on the Wi-Fi. Firesheep would snag it, and then the bad guy could be you on Facebook. This was such a notorious attack about 5 or 6 years ago that Facebook said, oh boy, and started using HTTPS, like your friend mentioned. What that does is it encrypts the traffic so that the bad guy can still see you're going to Facebook, but he can't see what you're doing, and he can't grab that token any more than he can grab your email password or your check, your credit card number as it flies through the air, because all of that's encrypted. In fact, it's so important, and there's so many other things a bad guy can do with unencrypted web traffic, like something we call a man-in-the-middle attack, that Google and others have been pushing to make every site be HTTPS. Last year, Google started saying, if you're HTTPS, your search rankings will be higher. And that got a lot of people's attention. So our site now is HTTPS, and most of the sites you're visiting are. However, so that's, and honestly, that's the main reason you'd use a VPN. But what a VPN does is the same thing, but it does it for all your traffic. And the advantage of a VPN over HTTPS is, for instance, I can still see all the places you're going. I can't see what you're doing. I can't see your traffic, but I can see where you're going. So that's one issue. So sometimes people use VPNs for privacy. They don't want their internet service provider or the coffee shop owner to know all the places you're going. So I guess be careful where you go on this. Don't go anywhere you wouldn't want anybody to know you're going on a public Wi-Fi. That's not a hard piece of advice. There's another somewhat more subtle attack that bad guys can do if they can see your computer. Remember, when you're on an open Wi-Fi access point, you are on the same network. So they can see get a little bit of information about your computer. If they have the proper hardware, they might even be able to see other access points your computer has joined. That seems to be something that's leaked. And then pose as your home access point. This is a really sophisticated attack. I don't think this happens that often. But they could pose as Renee's home router. Now, your computer, if it sees a stronger signal and it's your home router, it's just going to log in. It's going to say, oh, we're home. Honey, we're home. Log in, except that it isn't your home router. It's the bad guy. He continues to route you through the internet, but now he can see everything you're doing. He can decrypt it all.
Oh.
But that's a really unusual attack and something I don't think you really need to worry about. However, these are the reasons. There's one more reason people use a VPN. It has nothing to do with privacy or security, is that sometimes, and the legality of this is debatable. The ethics of it are not debatable. But sometimes people say, oh, I want to watch BBC TV shows on the BBC iPlayer. But BBC doesn't let the iPlayer be used anywhere outside of the UK because it's paid for by UK taxpayers with their license fees. And so they block, if you're coming from the US, you can't use it. But you can use a VPN that has a server, an outbound locale in the UK. Suddenly it looks like you're coming from the UK. So people use that sometimes to trick Netflix or BBC or other things about where they are geographically, because you appear to be geographically not where you are, but wherever that VPN server that you're using is. If it's your home, then you're coming out of your home. But if it's in the UK, you're coming out of the UK. This technique also is somewhat less useful these days because Netflix blocks VPNs. A lot of companies say, well, for that reason, we're not going to let you use a VPN. So people who use a VPN are extra cautious.
Would you say it's okay to use like an airport Wi-Fi without a VPN? Because I did hear those were quite dangerous.
Well, so the larger the footprint, the nice thing about the coffee shop is you can kind of scope out who's using it. In an airport, it's everybody in the airport. It could be somebody at Terminal C you don't even see. So it's a little more dangerous. The bigger danger, honestly, is joining something that says it's the airport Wi-Fi and it's not. That's a man-in-the-middle attack. That's when somebody poses as the airport Wi-Fi. They set up an access point that says airport Wi-Fi, official airport Wi-Fi, but it's not. And that is a little risky. A VPN won't protect you there, by the way. So, yeah, I don't use I rarely will use airport Wi-Fi. I will rarely use Wi-Fi in hotels. Coffee shops, okay. And it isn't a bad thing to have a VPN in case, you want to use it where it's kind of a sketch locale. But I think most people don't need VPNs because you nailed it. Once this fire sheep thing was all about, everybody said, oh no, and started encrypting their traffic. And that did 90% of what you want to do with a VPN.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked. That's a great
helpful
question. Yeah, thank you for asking. It's up to you whether you want to use it. Do not use a free VPN because remember, the other thing about a VPN that's really a really important thing is, you're safe now in the coffee shop, but you're really just kicking the can down the road. Now the privacy threat, the security threat is wherever that VPN server is and the VPN company itself. Because if you get a free VPN, chances are very good they are selling your information to marketers. Some VPNs inject ads into your surfing. So you got to choose a VPN. If you're going to use a VPN, very carefully. You got to really you're trusting that company more so than as much as you trust your internet service provider, maybe even a little more so. And usually these guys are a little sketchy. Most VPN companies won't say where they are, where they're from. They don't want the authorities knocking at their door. So it's actually kind of hard to figure out what a good VPN is or not. Thank you for really excellent questions. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Our show today brought to you, as always, by Epson. I'm going to give him a little plug because I like these Epson guys. Oh, should I? No, I don't have time, do I? I'll save it for next hour because we're going to break in about 30 seconds. Am I right, Big Pee-wee? See, I'm always paying attention, Damien. I'm okay. I hear the music. I should get my nap in, and I will be back in a minute with more coherent answers to your questions. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Oh, yeah, time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches, VPNs, hackers, bad guys, malware, ransomware. Did you see? I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and make a prediction. We thought last year was the year of the ransomware. This year is the year of the small government ransomware. So a couple of weeks ago, remember we were talking about 3 or 4 Florida jurisdictions that were bit by ransomware. And I think we figured it out. The attacks go against these small county governments or city governments, at least in Florida, because A, they're small. They don't have the budgets for real IT security. They're vulnerable. I think it's a pretty easy thing to attack because they have a website that says the names and emails of all the government officials, including the city manager and the planner and the controller. And it's not a hard thing to craft an email that looks like it comes from the city manager to the comptroller saying, this spreadsheet looks wrong. Can you open it up and verify the numbers? And, of course, it ain't a spreadsheet. It didn't really come from the town manager. It came from the ransomware author. But the comptroller thinks it's real, opens it up, and now the entire city is on its knees. And then the other reason this worked is because, at least in Florida, the city governments had banded together to create ransomware insurance. So the bad guy was pretty much guaranteed he was going to get a payment because it came out of the insurance fund. This week, ransomware attacked 22 towns in Texas, 22 municipalities. They think it was all the same. In one of those cities, the bad guy was asking for $2.5 million. Now, in most cases, the FBI security experts will say, don't pay off the ransom. You know, that's bad for so many reasons. Of course, it encourages more attacks, but you may not even get the decryption key that you're paying for. They may just blow you off. They're crooks. There's no sense of honor. So you may be wasting your money. However, in this case, most of these municipalities do pay because they have a responsibility to the taxpayers and the voters. There's stuff on, this is data that is vital to the running of the government. And also, they have insurance. And also, because these are fairly public cases, the chances are good that the ransomware attacker is going to give them the crypto key and unlock their stuff because it's good for business. See, pay us and we will give you the keys. The Texas Department of Information Resources says the evidence so far points to a single person doing this, one threat actor. No, not Nicolas Cage, not an actor or a bad actor, a threat actor. So far, they say no city has paid. All the areas are predominantly rural. One is a town called Borger. It's in the Texas Panhandle. It affects city business and financial operations. Birth and death certificates no longer available online. No utility payments from any of its. It's a small town, 13,000 residents. They will pay. I can almost promise you, if they can, these towns will pay. Although $2.5 million. Just a little tip for you ransomware authors out there. You know, you should ask for an amount of money that can be paid, and it would be more expensive to fix it than to pay you, right? Just, you know, that's the key. Don't ask for the world. One state official. Let's see. This is mayor of Keene, Texas, Gary Heinrich, said, "Stupid people. You know, just no sense of this at all. No way we're going to pay anything." Well, until this IT department comes back and says, Your Honor, there's no way to fix this unless we pay. And this is really important for all of us to remember. There is a way to avoid ransomware. First of all, you can avoid getting it by being very careful about what email attachments you open up. Now, as the example I gave you, a lot of times these emails are very believable. They come from people you know. They may have a very credible story, especially these kinds of targeted attacks, because the bad guys know a lot about the people they're targeting. So the emails will sound real. So always be suspicious. I have been saying for years, do not open attachments. That advice will hold you in good stead. But also be careful what links you click. You know, you got to be careful what you do online. And then the other thing, if you do get malware on your systems and you do get everything encrypted, is if you have a good offline backup, you're okay. That's the key. Your data has to be backed up regularly, every single day, maybe even more than every day, maybe every hour. And it has to be moved to somewhere that can't be modified by the malware. So I don't care if you come in, put a hard drive in there, run the backup program, and then unplug the hard drive and put it in your safe. But you got to do something so that it's not on the same network. It can't get encrypted. And then if you get bit, you go, oh, wow, that's bad. But fortunately, that safe holds all the data. And we can get back up and running with some effort. And not by spending $2.5 million. In Lake City, Florida, it's a small town, 12,000 people. They paid $460,000 because they had no choice. The ransom was paid by insurance. There was a $10,000 deductible, but I think that's the difference. In Florida, they had an insurance program. I don't know about Texas. 23 towns. We still don't know exactly which towns, and we haven't heard yet anybody's paid, but watch, because they will. Sad to say, they will. And, as I said, this is not merely the year of the ransomware hacker, but last year was bad. Big companies got bit. Some major companies took hundreds of millions of dollars in losses because of ransomware. This year, I would hope those big companies understand what they need to do to mitigate it. If you're a big company, my company's an example. I'm not a big company, but we have good IT. One would hope, right? You're running software at the border, in between your personnel, your employees, their computers, and the outside world that goes through software that's coming in and strips out potential threats, ransomware. It'd be hard for somebody to get ransomware email into my company because we're using a tool. I won't say the name of it because I don't want to give bad guys any ideas, but we're using a tool that does that protects you. So these big companies, they ought to be doing that. They ought to be training their employees. I'm sure they are, what not to do, how not to get phished. That's what they call it, phishing. I would presume they're doing that. And my goodness, there's no reason they don't have good offline backup to protect themselves. There's just no reason. It's inexcusable. So what happens when bad guys run up against a brick wall? Their security's improved. They go after people whose security is not improved, and that's why this is going to be the year of ransomware attacks on municipal governments. We have not seen the end of it. In fact, now that school is starting up, watch. Those school district computers that haven't been fired up all summer, as they get fired up, there's going to be email on them, and somebody's going to click it, and you're going to see. There's already been a few. I think you're going to see quite a few in the next week or two. Maybe next week will be the week of the school district ransomware. I'm not celebrating it by any means. It's terrible. These guys make a lot of money, these ransomware authors. It's a very lucrative business. But we can, if we're smart, we can stop it. And it doesn't take a giant IT budget. It just takes knowledge, information. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. I mentioned it before. I'll say it again. The website is free, open to all, and it's a great resource. If you hear something on the show, you can just go to techguylabs.com. Yeah, did you see I was reading this article. One of the quotes from the article comes from the Florida city that was attacked. Lake City, Florida. They're quoting Mike Lee, a sergeant with the Lake City Police Department. This is last month. They turned off the servers. They literally went room to room through City Hall, unplugging people's network cables, turning off all the computers. Didn't do any good. It just spreads too fast. Car guy Sam Abuelsamid is in the house. We're going to talk cars in just a little bit on the Tech Guy Show. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. Until then, Dave in Laguna Beach, California. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Leo. Been a big fan since the screensaver days.
Thank you.
Got a little bit, I know it's a little early for Halloween, but I got an iPhone XS Max horror story.
Uh-oh, because that's what I have. What happened?
Well, first it had problems with dropping calls. So
okay.
It took a little while to resolve.
Yep.
But, that was fixed. So then I started hearing from people that as I send them videos, I text them videos that they're poor quality. So I realized there's an issue with iMessage. And now where it kind of gets scary is I start to notice that my contacts start to disappear from my phone and possibly even photos. So I've talked to Verizon on the phone, actually went into a Verizon store about 20 minutes away from where I live, and they said they've exhausted everything, couldn't figure it out. So then I spoke to Apple, got sent up to advanced technical support with Apple. It's been about 3 weeks, and they're still trying to figure it out.
Here's the problem, and one of the reasons people don't get satisfaction. My wife's having trouble with her XS Max.
I heard you say that earlier.
Yeah, in fact, she's right now. I think she has an appointment at the Apple store today. But I doubt she'll get any satisfaction. And the problem is, a lot of the categories of issues we have are difficult for them to see and fix. If you can make something happen in front of them, if you can say, well, every time I do this and this, the phone reboots, they can do something about it. But her problems are it's dropping connections. It seems to be crashing a lot to the point where she has to reboot the phone. When we were in Orlando last week, her phone, we just couldn't get it started. So fortunately, I had mine. I gave it to her and put her SIM in it and transferred her files over. And she says, wow, your phone's a lot faster than mine. And I said, I've been telling you all year, you got a lemon, honey. So she's finally going to bring it in. But, you know, something that doesn't work quite right is really hard to demonstrate. Your issues, I can tell you right now, with no disrespect, because it could very well be a hardware issue. But if I'm the guy, if I'm the genius, and you're telling me this story, I'm thinking in my head, he's not going to say it out loud, something we call PEBCAC, which stands for problem, and this is I'm giving you an inside scoop on how tech support people talk about us, the users. PEBCAP stands for problem exists between keyboard and computer, or in other words, you. And so it's shorthand for, it's just a chair, not computer. Sorry. My tech guy is telling me, no, you dummy. When we say PEBCAP, we mean problem exists between keyboard and chair, which actually makes more sense, right? It's, yeah. So it's another kind of user error. I can, in other words, conceive of a scenario where it's entirely, and again, don't take this wrong because I'm not saying it is, but it's entirely your fault, David. For instance, iMessages does downsample large files before it sends them because you can't send a 20 gigabyte file through messages or even a 10 megabyte file. So photos and videos are often downsampled to a lower quality by messages. It is completely possible because most people, their contacts on their phone are set up through syncing with Google or iCloud or something else, that the syncing operation is syncing deletions as well as additions, and that those contacts are being deleted elsewhere and that's synchronizing your phone. Again, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I'm pointing out the difficulty in getting satisfaction.
Well, Apple actually downloaded some software to track what's going on with my phone. And when you go into my phone, the phone number doesn't show up. So it's in gray, and everything is in gray.
Oh, good. That's good. See, that's an example of, look at this. And they can see, and they know that's not right. That's the kind of thing you have to have. I don't know if my wife's going to get much satisfaction because she can't say, well, every day it reboots. Okay, let's see. Well, it's not going to do it right now. It's very hard to demonstrate that. And I think good support people, and Apple has good support people, understand that difficulty, and I'm glad to hear that they're being sympathetic. I'm even more happy to hear that they've created a tool to help them watch these behaviors when they're not there and kind of report back.
Right.
So
they mentioned they'll replace the phone at this point, but
good.
We're so
good.
We're so close to the next launch.
I know the irony. I told my wife that. I said, "You're getting a new phone in 2 weeks, dude. What do you?" Well, I don't call my wife dude, but actually I do. Dude, you're getting a new phone in 2 weeks. September 10th, they're going to announce a new phone. It'll arrive 9 or 10 days later. So by September 20th, she'll have a new phone anyway.
Right. Exactly.
So,
hey, on another point, Leo.
I hope they replace that phone. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, I have to say, Dave, if the same thing happens, now it's time to look at it's PEBCAC.
Sure. Well, I've got a little bit of a background in high tech and 30 years in fitness, and so I'd love to talk to you in the future to see if I could contribute. I actually speak on what the gym of the future looks like.
We used to have a show called Twit Fit because I knew that we'd have this podcast network for geeks. Most of them haven't gotten up out of the chair in a while. You know how we geeks are. So I brought my trainer in, and we would do training sessions. Then I realized, somebody's going to get hurt and sue me, so we stopped. But I think geeks need to be aware of fitness, don't we?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially in VR, AR. I know you're not a huge fan of VR, but...
VR fitness. That's interesting.
Yes.
What?
And then a lot of things with wearables that are going on also. And then also artificial intelligence, being able to capture data of what you're doing.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it. That sounds fascinating. Send me an email.
Perfect. Will do.
Nice to talk to you. I hope you get satisfaction on your phone. The reason I want to get her phone fixed is because it'll be a hand-me-down. And I don't want, our kid to have the same problems she's having. And it was actually a really good test when we swapped SIMs, and she said, your phone is so much better. Then I knew. And honestly, I think Apple has a quality control issue. I really do. I think that, and they're making so many phones so fast. And it's not just the phones. You heard our Apple call earlier, the Mac Mini problems. Apple used to be really two things. Used to be better quality out of the box and really good. Every computer manufacturer has problems, but really good at standing behind their deal. And very often just going to the wall and saying, here's another one. Sorry about your problem. Let me just give you a brand new phone. We'll figure it out later. They don't do that as much anymore. They're a bigger business.
For the new one to come out.
Yeah, the whatever they're going to call it, the 11 and the 11 Pro. That's what smart money is on right now. But of course, Apple, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Yeah.
Excellent.
Hey, nice to talk to you. I hope you get some satisfaction. And because it's an occupational hazard. Normally, if I weren't doing this for a living, I would buy a new phone every 3 or 4 years. But now I have to get the new one every time. So, and my wife says, "Well, you can't have a better phone than me." Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Sam Abuelsamid.
You seen this yet?
What's this? Oh, I know. Oh. So this is the interior of the Porsche Taycan. They finally revealed it. So a couple of things. I love this. Is that a tachometer? That little thing coming up above the...
That's a clock.
Oh, it's just a clock?
Yeah.
It's supposed
That's the chronometer.
It's supposed to look like a tachometer, isn't it? But of course, it's an electric vehicle, so there are no RPMs.
Right.
I mean, maybe there are, but...
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's the motor spinning.
You can tell how fast
you typically don't get an attack in an EV.
It doesn't matter, right? Love the classic Porsche steering wheel. So this is the thing that is most interesting. And actually, this is the first time I've seen a direct picture of this center console. That's the shifter.
Yeah, it's actually the same part that they had a few years ago in the 918 Hybrid, which was a plug-in hybrid supercar that they built.
Oh, so you've seen this before?
Yeah.
So it looked like it had kind of almost a digital screen as well as a physical switch.
I think it's got there's a little display on it, that tells you which gear, whether you've selected park, reverse.
And
how
do you shift? You just is it a button?
No, it's rotary. You twist it.
It's a rotary dial.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not crazy about that, but okay, I'll get used to it. It doesn't have a big screen in the center console. This is a screen too, though, right?
Yeah, there's actually 5 different displays in there.
1, 2, 3, 4. Where's the 5th? I see one on the passenger side. I see this one down here.
It might actually be the clock.
Oh,
it's the 5th one.
Or maybe this tachometer is a separate screen.
Could be. I'm not sure.
I really want this automobile.
Yeah.
I shouldn't really.
The official reveal is in 2 weeks.
Yep. I won't be getting it for a year.
Yeah.
But that's nice. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of looks. That's a little bit like the Audi wheel and Audi center console. This is the music, and it's going to have Apple Music on it, which
Apple
is wild.
Music built in.
Yeah, that's wild.
And then CarPlay as well. No Android Auto support.
Not a lot of switches.
Which my friend, no switches. That's my complaint about. I don't like having everything embedded in that central touchscreen, particularly the climate controls.
Yeah.
I was driving
I don't like that either.
Driving a Ram pickup a couple weeks ago that has their big 12-inch center display.
Yeah.
And you can get it with an 8.4-inch display and then physical climate control switches below it.
Nice.
Or the big 12-inch portrait display, which then you get the climate controls in the screen. And I don't like using the climate control. I like to be able to just twist the knob if I want to adjust the temperature.
We rented a Camaro in Orlando, and the vents have big outside
Those
dials.
actually work really well.
I loved that.
Yeah.
To me, that was like, that's perfect.
The bezel around the vent
bezel
is actually the temperature control.
Yeah.
You just give it a little
There's
twist,
one for temperature and one for fan speed.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I thought, this is how it should be. This is great. There's a good reason for physical controls, as the Navy has announced.
Yes. They're going back to physical controls.
Now, this is interesting. The passenger has music.
They have their own display in front of them.
Wow, that's
interesting.
interesting.
And the passenger can actually watch video on that screen.
Oh, how funny. And they get nav, which is good because often my passenger is navigating. Nice. Oh, I want this so bad. This is going to be a nice vehicle. Does it have real mirrors or smart mirrors?
For now, at least for the U.S. market, it'll have real mirrors. because the camera mirrors are not legal here yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So even on the e-tron, you can only get the camera mirrors in Europe. You can't get them here.
Which do you prefer?
I like them on the camera mirrors. There's less of a blind spot on the outside.
Right.
Some people don't like them. Some people aren't crazy about them. But
I worry about the
like
cameras failing, but that's
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Time for our automotive expert, Sam Abuelsamid. He's a thank you, Big Pee-wee. Oh, man, we have a live studio audience. He is a principal researcher and Navigant researcher. He has a great car podcast called Wheel Bearings at wheelbearings.media. Joins us every week. A little bit later this week because you were up.
I was in flight. I was on an airplane.
Oh, you were flying here?
Yeah, I flew in this morning.
There's a.
My arm's tired.
I thought that there was a Lincoln Aviator event that Johnny Jett's coming up to in Napa. Is that what you're here for?
No, last time I was here 2 weeks ago was for an Aviator Drive program.
Oh, you already did that?
Yeah, and then they were. I was supposed to have one today. They had a little issue with it on Friday when they were delivering it to Park and Fly. Got into a little fender bender, so they had to swap it out for a Navigator. So we'll get back to that one, but I can talk about that if you want. If you have any questions.
No, let's talk about whatever you have in your mind.
Yeah. So first off, before we start, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Mary Steelhorst, who I ran into this morning at the airport.
Yeah.
And she's the wife of the late great Tony Swan, and she mentioned that she is a huge fan of yours, and she listens to the Tech Guy podcast every week.
Oh, that's so nice.
So
Hi, Mary.
That's
wonderful.
She should be in Jacksonville right now.
Tony was a racer and an auto.
Tony
writer.
was a longtime auto writer. Long ago he was editor in chief at Motor Trend, and he wrote for Car and Driver for many years and many other publications. So, great guy. Passed away almost a year ago now.
Car and Driver writing about him said Tony was smart, well-read, funny, irascible, cantankerous, opinionated, friendly, difficult, charming, honest, and eminently interesting to be around. That's what I hope they write about me.
He was a great inspiration to me personally.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hello, Mary. I'm glad you're listening. Thank you.
What I wanted to talk about today was last week after I was on, one of your other callers had some questions about his Honda CRZ.
Yeah.
Which is a little hybrid coupe that Honda discontinued a couple of years ago. It was sold from about 2010 to about 2016, I think. Little sports coupe, kind of inspired by the original CRX of the 1980s, but it had a hybrid powertrain in it. And he had some questions about it, as far as the durability of the battery, and also, in the event of an accident, what happens with the battery. So.
Yeah, because Honda, of course, makes the Prius. They've been that's Toyota. They make, but they've been making hybrids for a while. They have some electrics, but that CRZ maybe isn't the latest state of the art.
It's not anymore.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's discontinued now.
Yeah.
And even when it came out, it wasn't really state of the art. It wasn't really as competitive with Toyota's hybrids as it could have been. Right. But in general. With hybrids, one of the things to keep in mind about hybrids, and the CRZ, in fact, the first 3 years of production, it actually had a nickel metal hydride battery.
Whoa.
And then 2013, which is what Toyota used from the beginning, and Honda. They didn't start using lithium-ion batteries in hybrids until around, I think Ford was actually one of the first. Hyundai was actually the first in the Sonata hybrid in 2011.
So using the kind of batteries we use in laptops, cameras, cell phones, that's really transformed electric vehicles.
Yes.
They are much more reliable. They're higher capacity. Nickel metal hydride had all sorts of problems, as anybody who had those
nickel
rechargeables.
cadmium was actually the worst.
NiCads were the worst because they had memory effect problems. If you didn't charge them all the way and discharge them all the way, they would stop working as well, and that's crazy. But even nickel metal hydride wasn't as good as lithium ion.
Yeah, it has about half the energy density of lithium ion batteries, but they were relatively inexpensive. By comparison to lithium ion anyway. And so, Toyota and Honda and several other manufacturers, Ford, used them in hybrid vehicles for many years.
So his CRZ probably has nickel metal hydride.
I can't remember what year he said. I don't know if he said what year.
So later on they went to lithium ion.
They went to lithium ion.
Okay.
But the thing, in hybrid vehicles, the way they use the batteries is they don't actually use the full charge capability of the batteries. They typically run them from about 35 to about 85% state of charge and cycle them in that middle range.
So the gas engine will kick in when they get below 35.
Yeah.
Charge them up, but never more than 85.
Right, and they're relying more on regenerative braking than actually charging it from the gas engine. The gas engine can charge it a little bit under certain conditions, but it's mostly regenerative braking.
There's something to be said, by the way, for using nickel metal hydride in a car like that, where there's this constant discharge charge cycle. They may be better, more reliable than lithium ion.
They actually work really well in those applications.
Yeah.
And in fact, in terms of durability, it's turned out that over the last 20 years, Prius and other hybrid vehicles with nickel metal hydride batteries, they're actually the batteries have turned out to be incredibly durable. Starting about 2008 or so, Ford actually started running a lot of escape hybrids in the New York City taxi fleet. And they were regularly getting over 300,000 miles on those vehicles without having to, with the battery holding up and holding most of its original capability. So most hybrids can easily go through the entire usable lifespan of the vehicle without having to replace the battery. And
so that was one concern of his, was longevity, but his others was safety.
Yeah, and in the CRZ, the battery, because that was actually more of a mild hybrid system, the battery is actually relatively small. It's about half the size of the battery that Toyota uses in the Prius. So it's not that big of a battery.
Your gas tank's more dangerous than the battery.
Your gas tank's going to be more dangerous than that one.
Yeah.
And so the safety shouldn't really be an issue, no more so than any other aspect of that particular vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's
in general, I mean, we hear a lot about Tesla fires and other electric vehicle fires. Are electric batteries more dangerous than gasoline or fuel cell technology?
I would say that they probably catch fire less often. You probably have fewer fires as a percentage of the total vehicle fleet with EVs than you do with gas engines. The problem is when they do catch fire, batteries are very difficult to extinguish, especially lithium-ion batteries.
And often first responders aren't trained in how to extinguish electrical fires.
And
they'll try to do the same thing they do with a gas fire.
That.
Yeah, that's just a question of time and use.
But so one of the issues with an EV battery is oftentimes it can take several hours to fully extinguish an EV battery, and even then there have been many instances where a day or 2 or 3 days later, because of a short that happened, an internal short in one of the cells that may not have burned previously, it may reignite itself spontaneously. And so there have been instances where cars they've crashed, burned, been towed to a wrecking yard, and then a couple of days later it reignites. And one example was the crash last year down in Mountain View. The Apple engineer that crashed, his car burned, and they hauled it away, and 2 days later it reignited. And so this has happened on several occasions. So they're not necessarily inherently more dangerous, but when they do catch fire, or when they do catch fire, they're more difficult to deal with than gasoline.
Yeah. Honestly, this is part of the problem we have with this new technology. It's with all new technology. The reporting focuses on the new technology. They don't mention all the gas fires that have happened and they're still happening.
That just happens.
We're used to it.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the old way. It's okay. So you get a little bit distorted point of view. I think electric vehicles are not dangerous particularly.
No. Every EV has to meet the exact same Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards as any gasoline or diesel or any other type of vehicle. So they have to meet the same crash protection requirements and everything else. So they're not necessarily going to be inherently more dangerous.
Sam Abuelsamid, he is. I'm so glad we have a car guy. He is the principal researcher at Navigant Research. That's what he focuses on. He's worked with all the big car companies. In fact, I think I met you when you were representing Chevy at the Consumer Electronics Show. You had these wild autonomous vehicles that Chevy, that Chevy was showing off. His podcast is called Wheel Bearings. You can find it at Wheel Bearings Media. And I know people love cars, so you should listen to that podcast. You'll enjoy it. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Leo.
Have fun driving your massive Navigator around. 8888 Ask Leo. That's our phone number. I thought I saw a giant truck lumber into the parking lot. I see it right now.
It's the opposite of your bolt.
Yeah, it's giant. We'll have more of your calls coming up right after this. That's pretty funny.
That's actually the regular one. There's also an XL that's about a foot longer.
I could see it. Yeah, that's so funny. Well, that was great. I'm so glad you brought that up. Now, let me ask you about this guy who said his GPS doesn't work as well in his Hyundai. It works fine in his Volkswagen. He has 3 cars. It works fine in 2 of the vehicles, but one vehicle, it's delayed. The GPS isn't as accurate.
Is this a personal navigation device?
Yeah,
like
I think it's on his
GPS?
phone.
It's possible, depending on where he's mounting it, that the antenna may not be getting a clear signal.
Well, that's what I said, and he said, "No, I'm putting it in the windshield." But I asked, "Do you have tinted windows?" He said he does, and so it could be metal in the tinted windows.
That's definitely a possibility. It could
be, but this is another weird theory. The one that doesn't work is a hybrid. And I wonder if...
So, yeah, it could be an EMI problem.
Okay, that's possible.
That is a genuine issue. And that's one of the reasons, for example, why Teslas don't have AM radios in them.
That's what I brought up. I said my Tesla doesn't have an AM radio. They said they couldn't. I do know there are some electric vehicles that have AM radios, but they must do extra shielding.
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. And for all of the electrical and electronic components in a vehicle, they do. Manufacturers do extensive EMI testing. When I was an engineer, that was one of the things working on ABS and traction control, stability control. Our ECUs, the computers that control the system, had to go through significant amounts of EMI testing, and they have anechoic chambers where they'll blast the electronics. They'll have all these different antennas and blast them with all kinds of electromagnetic interference to try to get it to glitch. And sometimes that does happen, and then you have to go back and do some redesign on the electronics.
Where does the noise come from? Is it the motor, the electric motor, or the alternator? Or
Yeah, sometimes it's the alternator. In an EV or hybrid, it could be the electric machine, the electric motor. Sometimes it's radio transmitters. It can be literally anything.
Right.
Right. So
it could just be that the way this car is made, it's less conducive to GPS for a variety of reasons. It could be that it's a hybrid, but it could be the tinting in the windows.
Yeah, the Sonata hybrid. It's possible that where he's got it sitting, it may be in proximity, too close proximity to the electric motor or the power electronics. The power electronics that does the AC to DC conversion could be emitting some interference. Yeah.
So Lisa's less enamored of the Bolt as she drives it around. She says, "I think I want a bigger EV," especially because she's worried about wrecks. I think, I think because of the mass of these cars, they're pretty safe, right?
Oh yeah, and
more so because,
as I said, regardless of the size of the vehicle, it's got to pass the same crash test requirements. In fact, I was just at Honda R&D in Ohio on Thursday, and we got to witness a crash test.
Oh wow!
They did what's known as the small offset rigid barrier test, which is a particularly severe test, and it's 40 miles an hour with a 25% overlap to a rigid barrier. So it's kind of outside of the frame rails. And this is a relatively new test that they've started doing in the last 6 or 7 years. And even afterwards, they were still able to open the door on this Honda Civic.
What?
Yeah, they were able to get the door open.
Amazing.
So,
wow, that is
modern vehicles,
frame stability. I know it's really impressive what they've done.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sophisticated engineering that goes into getting the energy flow.
She's going to feel very safe in that Porsche Taycan.
I would think so. Yeah, I have no doubt about that.
It's either that or the e-tron. We might just get an e-tron and do the SUV thing. But I would like a little sports car.
Yeah,
depends how rich I feel in a year and a half.
Depends how many iPhones you have to buy.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is a terrible season. I got to buy. I just bought. This is the new Note 10 Plus.
That was a nice
$11 or $1,200. Yeah, that's all we could talk about. This is the fins. I was talking earlier about how we're down to the point as Detroit was in the 50s where you can't really do anything to improve the car. So put fins on it. That'll get people to buy the new model year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Sam. All right, thanks. Tech Eye Podcast is brought to you, as always, by our friends at Lastpass, the #1 most preferred password manager. Lastpass, I wouldn't live without Lastpass. Passwords are a pain, right? They just stink. LastPass fixes all of the problems with passwords. Are you tempted to use the same password more than once? No, don't. LastPass will generate nice, long, strong passwords automatically for you for each site. Problem is, they're hard to remember because they're good passwords. Don't worry about it. LastPass is a password vault. It will store your passwords. All you have to remember is your master password and let LastPass do the rest. It's great on Windows, on Macintosh, even on Linux. It will automatically fill in the password for you. It works on Android and iOS, does the same thing. And, of course, at work we use LastPass because, well, frankly, if you think about it, you're giving your employees the keys to the kingdom, the passwords to your bank accounts, your websites, your databases, your payroll. So it's really important that you use a password manager to keep that stuff safe. Lastpass Enterprise does it. In fact, they've improved Lastpass Enterprise. It's a brand new lineup with some amazing features that do something that's almost impossible. They make you more secure and make it easier for users to get your employees to get their work done. Usually it's a trade-off between security and convenience. I've never heard of anything that's both more convenient and more secure, but that's this. For instance, LastPass Enterprise with single sign-on. 1,200 plus apps, more apps coming all the time that support SAML. Each has its own getting started guide, so you don't have to train your employees, but they'll love it because they don't have to remember a password. They don't have to enter a password. They enter their login. Their phone lights up, says, is that you logging in? Say yes or no. You say yes, you're in. More secure and more convenient. They also are using now MFA. You've heard about two-factor. This is multi-factor authentication. It uses biometrics, your face or your fingerprint, and contextual factors like your location or your IP address so that it really knows who you are, who you say you are. And administrators, IT professionals, they have a dashboard that tells them everything. They give you oversight and control. LastPass Identity, that's what they call it, a combination of LastPass Enterprise and LastPass MFA. From single sign-on and password management to adaptive authentication, LastPass gives granular control to IT and frictionless users access. That's really great. Actually, the users aren't frictionless. The access is. I can't speak for your users. We use LastPass Enterprise at TWiT. You should use LastPass Enterprise. You should use LastPass at home. Go to lastpass.com/twit and find out how LastPass can make you safer and more secure and be easier to use. lastpass.com/twit. Thank you, LastPass, for supporting the Tech Guy podcast. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy, 8888. Ask Leo, the phone number. Line 3, Jay in Temecula. Hi, Jay.
Hello.
Come on over to the phone. Your long wait is finally over. Thanks for your patience.
It is. I was just taking my blood pressure.
Oh, good. Always a good thing to do.
The reason I'm calling is I have a 27-inch MacBook, or iMac, with 2012. So I'm anticipating it's going to break down in the next few years.
It might not.
After listening to your prior guests.
You might be happy you've got an older one.
Right. But the reason is I have some Raspberry Pis, and I have...
oh, nice.
I'm looking at getting a new monitor and a Mac Mini, and then I'd like to be able to plug in the Raspberry Pi and the Mac Mini into the same monitor.
Now both are going to have an HDMI output. Actually, I think, a lot of them have HDMI, but I'm really more concerned about switching back. Yes, I understand. That's the next clause in that sense. But I should point out, while the Raspberry Pi has HDMI, the Mac Mini will actually give you a choice. It does have an HDMI out, but also has Thunderbolt 3, and you could use video out of there. Because you want to use it with the Raspberry Pi, make sure you get an HDMI-capable monitor. You could buy a Thunderbolt 3 monitor, but then you'll have to buy additional hardware.
The new Raspberry Pi 4, I think, does have Thunderbolt.
For display?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, well, that's
I'm assuming it was for display. Maybe not.
That will make it easier.
Yeah.
If you can use Thunderbolt, well, actually, that's an interesting question. With HDMI, it's very straightforward. You need an HDMI, basically what's called a switch, but it's a splitter. And you'll have two or more in, and there's a physical knob, or you could do it in software that changes which one. They even make them that'll say, oh, I see the signal from the Pi is hot, so let's switch to that. I've never found those work reliably, but maybe I just didn't buy a good one. But Geffen and a lot of companies that make that kind of gear, Geffen, make HDMI switches. It's an interesting question. I have to kind of think about this. If you wanted to use Thunderbolt 3,
Right.
in theory, all three could be connected at the same time, both computers to the monitor.
Yep, and I'd also like to be able to hook up an old Windows machine that I have that I just use to check websites to see how they render.
Well, the other thing, since you haven't bought the monitor, is you might look for a monitor that has multiple inputs.
I have been looking at, like iMore had an article about the different monitors, 4K monitors to get, and Apple sells the LG ultrafine 4K display. So I've been looking at it, but as you get into it, there's a lot of different ports, but the question really becomes how to select which image you want to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, for years, and we still use it today, we've used KVM switches, which is kind of the more permanent way to do this and gives you much more flexibility. IO Gear makes some of the best ones. The idea is KVM stands for keyboard, mouse, and monitor. Wait a minute, KVM, keyboard, video, and monitor. And the idea is you have one keyboard, one mouse, one monitor, but you have multiple inputs, multiple computers. And when you use the switch, then see this way, you don't have to have multiple keyboards and mice either. So you can have just the Windows machine, the Raspberry Pi, the Mac Mini sitting. You could even stack them.
Right.
They're all connected to the KVM switch, as is a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor. And the KVM switches usually nowadays do it in software. Some of them have physical switches, but software is probably the best way. And you just say, screen, mouse, keyboard, you are now controlling the Raspberry Pi. That's the easiest way to do it, I think.
Is that a mechanical switch, is it?
They're both. They're mechanical or soft. I think most of the more modern stuff is soft. IO Gear has been doing this for years. That's I think, the ones we use. They make a lot of KVM switches. What do we use, John, for our KVM? Ours just went bad. We had to order a new one. We have a giant KVM because we have two video studios. I'm in one doing the radio show. We have another one over there. But I can control our video switcher from here using this KVM. So it's kind of the same idea, which is I have a keyboard, mouse, and monitor in here, but it's controlling the same machine. I guess it's kind of a reverse. Monoprice sells some inexpensive ones that are good. Some of them are software. Most of the new ones are software. Some of them are hardware. IO Gear makes one that works specifically with USB-C. They have a 2-port USB-C KVM switch that would do that all in software. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they have a button on the front. I would go to IO Gear. You can easily find what you need, and just get enough inputs. Get enough inputs to handle all the devices you might want. Maybe get a couple extra in case you say, "Oh, what about that old machine or that old machine? I'd like to hook that one up." Our KVM, John's telling me, is from a German company I've never heard of. But we have a very good IT department, so I know they're good, called Draco, DRACO. But I've always used IO Gear. I think IO Gear is safe.
Okay, yeah, I use them for...
You're familiar with them?
Yes, HDMI. I have
yeah.
Echo a TV so I can watch it in the kitchen. Or
the Draco is probably a pretty heavy duty. Oh, it's designed for video studios, that's why. Abbey Road uses it. It's from ihse.com.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably a very expensive, heavy-duty guy.
I just want to clean up my desk because I got a little monitor over here. And
I need that too, really, because I have, you should see my desk. I now have 4 monitors on my desk, 2 keyboards. Yeah. I don't know how many mices. It's kind of out of control. I should get this KVM myself.
Well, when you figure it out, would you?
I'll tell you what I'm doing. My problem is I have an iMac. That is part of the problem because, as you know, as an iMac owner, that screen is always there. There's nothing you could do about that one, and it doesn't have an input. So you can't switch anything else into that screen. That screen is there for the Mac.
Right.
It'd be a lot easier with a Mac Mini because it has no screen. So your life will be a lot simpler using them.
Well, I'm anticipating that after 7.5, 8 years, it's going to die, and I'd rather.
I don't know if it'll die, but it's I'll tell you what's going to happen more likely is at some point you're not going to be able to put the latest version of Mac OS on it.
Yeah, the new one, it's going to support it, but then the next one after
the
that
last one.
Questionable.
Yeah. So Catalina is very nice. I've been using it. That'll be out in a few weeks, I think.
Right. It says it supports it, so.
Good. That's the last one, though. I bet you that's the last one.
Yeah.
2012's fine. As I said, and as you've heard on this show, some of the newer Mac stuff is maybe not as good as the classic old Mac stuff.
Yeah, Jerry made me almost hang up and after his woe about his Mac Mini.
I know. No, I think these new Mac Minis are great. They were a long-awaited, way overdue upgrade to really one of the best Macs out there. They now have enough horsepower and enough connectivity on the back to really be the center of your operation, as much as any professional, iMac Pro or Mac Pro, I think, and much less expensive.
Well, if you ever resolve this at your home,
I will let you know.
Go on Mac. I listen to Mac Break Weekly.
I'll mention it on Mac Break Weekly. Yeah, so I have the iMac, and it has 2 screens. So I have a 3-screen iMac set up, but then I have this little Linux computer with its own screen. It's just kind of sitting there, and I look like Rick Wakeman at a Yes concert. I've got 3 or 4 keyboards stacked up. It's pretty nutty. It's not a good way to operate. And you know how it is. This stuff grows like Topsy. And
right.
you don't plan it. It just kind of happens, and then at some point you go, I've really got to fix this. I got to solve this problem.
Before I spend money on a monitor, I'm trying to address how I'm going to handle all of that.
That's smart. That's wise, because you could get a monitor that might just do everything you need. I like the idea of a KVM. Then you don't have to multiple keyboards or multiple mice either.
Okay.
That's what I should have done in the first place. Thanks for the call. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. More calls right after this. Thank you very much, Doc. Oh, hi. I got your key, Dr. Mason. That was you who left that, right? Wasn't you? Hi, Doctor. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
From Needham.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Who is this from? Oh, no, different doctor. This was the weirdest thing. This guy left me a hotel key with a USB thing on it, so I figure it's a USB key. But what he doesn't know is that's really dangerous to just stick a USB key that somebody gave you into your computer. So I can never look at this. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches, all that jazz. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number if you want to talk high tech. I'd love to talk with you. 888-827-5536. That's toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. Back to the phones we go. Line 1, Paul in Dallas. Hello, Paul.
Howdy, Leo.
Howdy.
How are you today?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
What can I do for you?
A number of your callers over the months have been lusting after some way to record off-the-air TV programs, and you've mentioned a lot of solutions for that sort of problem. But I think you've missed one.
Oh, well, I'd love to hear about it because this is a hot topic. You're absolutely right. People who want to cut the cable, they don't want the cable company anymore, but they've got over-the-air signals, but they want that one thing the cable company did provide, the DVR.
Absolutely. Well, here is my solution.
Yes, sir.
And I got it at Walmart. It's a little box. I think it costs $50.
Ooh.
RCA DTA 880.
Never heard of it.
There it is.
In fact, I wonder if it's even made by the original RCA or if that's somebody new. It is on Amazon.
No, it's branded.
Yeah, some Chinese company licensed the RCA name.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's called the Digital TV Converter and Recorder.
Does it come with storage in it? Not at that price.
Oh yes.
Really?
A little bitty box. You get an IR remote control and a wall wart to power it.
Yeah.
And it's a digital tuner. You have to set up the way tuners are set up. But it's got a USB slot inside.
Oh, so it doesn't have storage, but you can easily plug in storage.
Correct. Plug a thumb drive. It's got to be a fast thumb drive.
Sure.
I've tried the standard and the cheap ones that I have laying around, or a up to a terabyte hard disk drive, a notebook drive in a carrier, and the thing works great. It's not the most sensitive digital tuner, but it works.
Now, here's the question on all of these. Do you have a TV guide? How do you record?
It has a very rudimentary menu system which reads the broadcast data on current and future programs.
So you do have a guide.
You do.
Because a number of these, TiVo, for instance, Channel Master, Silicon Dust's HD Home Run, you need a guide because otherwise you have to manually enter the start time and end time and date, and that's like an old VCR. But with a guide, you just click on the show and record it.
This one is not far off from that.
Yeah.
But
because otherwise it usually costs money. You have to pay a monthly fee for the guide.
The broadcast information is fairly limited anyway.
All right, but there's some information. All right.
Does let you select start and end times, by program.
Okay.
And you can do, a page. I've never done more than a couple at a time. And it works.
Nice.
And it's cheap.
Well, thank you for the recommendation. The RCA DTV 880, is that what? DTA 880?
That's correct.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking at it on Amazon. There's some third-party sellers, but you got yours at Walmart. So, as I look on Amazon, I see a dozen similar boxes. I suspect that this is, there's some company in China cranking these out, and then companies are putting their label on it. It's really just a tuner that you can put storage onto and has a record button. I think that this, by the way, I wonder if this is going to be
VTR.
Yeah, it's our DVR. Yeah,
attractiveness.
Yeah, I wonder how much longer we're going to be using these, because where we're going, of course, is on demand, where in effect the shows you want are recorded and offered for streaming by a company, whether it's Apple or Roku or your cable company. And I think that's, we've gone from, recording VHS tapes to buying and renting DVDs and VHS tapes to digital storage, buying a movie and downloading it. At this point, all of that seems almost obsolete these days. And now it's just, what do you want to watch? Oh, let's pull it up on Netflix or on HBO Go or whatever it is, the streaming service we have, and play it. Where that doesn't work so well, though, is football games, live events like the Academy Awards, the Grammy Awards, things like that, or even just nightly news. So I think over the air is still a good deal.
Certainly the trend, but there are those of us who do not care for that whole concept.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the youngs.
I have a very large DVD and Blu-ray collection.
I'm just saying, we're old hat. It's like my grandpa who had his 78s, it made him happy, but times are changing.
Well, in a previous life, I was a heavy user of ARPANET.
Oh my, the original internet.
Absolutely. The original cloud is what it amounts to.
Yes.
That's where the software was, too.
Oh, wow, interesting. Were you in the military or research institution? You're in the military. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that was the precursor to the modern internet.
Fortran and basic programming on the net. Amazing. And I did not care for the whole idea of things existing in a cloud on the other side of the country.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that was and I'll put this in air quotes, the progress we made in the 70s and 80s was you don't have to use a computer somewhere else. You're going to have a computer, your very own personal computer on your desk. Really? You'll be the only one using it. What? That's incredible. And then 30 years later, fast forward, we're back to using the cloud. And that personal computer on your desk is not much more useful than the terminal was when you were using your ARPANET.
I used in the beginning. I used teletype machines as terminals.
Yes,
paper tape. As storage.
Yeah.
However, the keyboards did have a nice feel.
Yeah. There's something we have not made progress in. The other day, my wife said, "Would you set up Michael's MacBook for school? Because school's coming up." And I said, "Sure." And I'm typing on this MacBook keyboard. I'm going, this is the worst keyboard I've ever used. These keys hardly move. I can't type accurately on it at all. I like a keyboard that's got a big, long key travel and switches that go clickety-clack when you're typing on them. I like that, but boy, it's hard. Good luck finding them. Somewhere I have an old IBM. I bought I actually buy this online from a guy who refurbishes them. One of the old buckling switch keyboards, and it's just so satisfying to bang on that. Man,
there's several outfits that sell mechanical switch keyboards now. I have one.
They're nice.
And when I get nostalgic, I get it out.
Yep.
Because it makes a lot of noise.
It's really I can't use it on the air. It's just it sounds like you're talking to the Time Life operator clickety clacking in the background. Hey, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you, Paul. I thank you for that suggestion. I think anybody who's listening, and there are a lot of cord cutters out there, that's a great price. If you've already got a hard drive you can plug into it, what a simple way. And it's got the tuner and everything. What a simple way. All you need is an antenna, and you're set. Can I click my ruby slippers and say there's no place like home? There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We'll be back right after this. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. Line 4, Matthew, Denver, Colorado. Hello, Matthew.
Hey, Leo.
Hey.
I'm calling you from a mountainside. I'm hiking right now.
Oh, how nice.
Hope I don't lose you, and I hope I don't get bit by a rattlesnake.
And I hope you don't fall off.
Right.
What mountain are you on?
Green Mountain, just outside of Denver.
Yeah, my son went to Boulder, CU Boulder, and so I know that area. It's beautiful. Just beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful view right now.
Oh, I bet. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
What can I do for you?
Well, thanks for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, how exciting.
I've been listening to you for a while. I don't go back as far as some people, but found your podcast later in life.
I actually like it to know there's more people listening than just the people who've been listening for 100 years. It's nice to know.
Yeah.
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 Welcome.
Thank you. So first, before I get to my question, I had just a suggestion on your on the notorious Scott Wilkinson lag issue with Chrome.
Yes.
I had this problem with my MacBook. It was a 2011 MacBook, but I just had to delete Chrome at some point because there was this Chrome helper agent.
Oh yeah.
That just it would start and it would just you couldn't kill it. And I just had to delete Chrome and give up.
So just for those who don't know, Scott, when he calls me, calls via Skype video. So I can see, and anybody watching videos of the show, because we also make a video version of the show, can see that his lip sync is very, very bad. I mean, literally seconds off. And in the chat room, one of our chatters said, well, tell him to close Chrome. And it instantly got better. Chrome was eating so much power, just sitting there, that it was ruining the lip sync. But you're saying just stopping Chrome may not be enough. There's a Chrome helper that's also running in the background.
Even further, yes, that helper agent. There's no way to tell when it's going to start, when it's going to stop. And it would just max out my CPU. My fans would just ramp up. So I just gave up and deleted Chrome. And now I use Firefox, and it's great.
I am a big Firefox fan. That's my new browser of choice. Although I have to say, I was just talking about the Easter egg Google put in today for the 80th anniversary of the Wizard of Oz. if you search for Wizard of Oz on Google and click on the ruby slippers, the page spins around and goes into black and white, and it does some fun stuff. But I noticed on Firefox, the spinning is really slow. It's like, but in Chrome, it's really fast. Actually, that kind of makes sense because Chrome's using more CPU than Firefox is. It's got more resources available to it. So I guess that kind of makes sense. If you're living in Chrome, then not a problem. But if you want to use something besides Chrome, maybe a problem. So what can I do for you?
So I have a Synology disk station, the DS918 Plus.
Very nice.
I've got four terabyte drives installed in it.
Oh yeah.
And
that's 16 terabytes of storage. Nice.
I maybe wasn't. That might be enough, but I started at RAID 10, and I'm going to move to RAID 5. But in order to do so, I need to figure out how to. The backup that they provide is like it's a proprietary backup. I want to figure out how to get just a straight image of this disk station, download it to a USB drive, and then I can just restore it back on. And none of their tools, the built-in hyper backup, doesn't seem to do that. And it's like a system of apps.
So let me, first of all, and we're going to have to start this new feature of simultaneous translation of geek speak on the show. But let me translate all of the things that you just said, because
thank you.
Poor Wendy's sitting here saying, I don't know what he just said. It's all Greek to me. We'll start off by talking about what this Synology is. Synology is a company that makes network-attached storage devices, or NASs. And the neat thing about a NAS is it's usually got tons of storage. In your case, you have 4 disks in there. It's like a 4-disk enclosure. But it's still a computer. It's running Linux. It's got and on top of that, it's got its DSM, the Synology software. It's connected to the network. It doesn't have its own keyboard, mouse, or monitor. You log into it from another computer over the network, but it's always available on your network. And so you can run software on that to back things up. You can run server software on it. It's very flexible. It's a really nice, a lot of people use it for a media center. So they put all their digitized movies and TV shows on it, and then they're available to all the devices in the house, things like that. So a NAS is a great thing to have, especially for backup. But you make an interesting point. Your NAS is huge. If it were populated, you wouldn't want to make a 12 terabyte image. What would you put that on? So you're saying you want to image it. I presume you just want to image it with just the operating system, empty.
No, I want to image it with the stuff on it. I don't quite.
But that's going to be giant.
Out yet.
Where are you going to put? Even if it's a 3 terabyte image, where are you going to put that?
I have an 8 terabyte hard drive.
All right. Okay.
So just pop it on there and then restore it back when I'm done. And I want to get all the apps and stuff that come with it too.
I honestly don't. I think you're trying to treat the NAS more like a computer, and I don't think that's the right thing to do. But you certainly can do it, and I'm going to let you do that. Because the NAS is on the network, it can be mounted using SMB on a Windows machine. It even supports older protocols like Apple's file system, and you can mount it, and it will look to that computer like a hard drive, at which point you can image it on that computer using any imaging tool. You can image, in other words, a network drive. It'll be slower because it's not on the locally. And incidentally, if you want it to be faster, you can plug a NAS, almost any NAS, certainly the Synology, directly into a computer via the USB cable, or faster if you've got it. Plug it right in and image it that way. But honestly, and you're right, I don't use Synology's own backup software, but there are other ways to back up your NAS. So one of the things Synology has that's great is if you buy, and this is expensive, but if you buy a duplicate NAS and keep it at work, Synology has a synchronization tool, I think it's based on rsync, that will keep both NASs identical. That's actually a beautiful way to back up, because if anything happens to the backups at home, you've got it at the office, and vice versa. So you've got a duplication of the NAS. That's the more expensive thing to do. It also supports, there's lots of third-party software. I use Amazon's Glacier. Are you familiar with Glacier? It's a form of Amazon storage. It's very cheap because it's very slow. And the idea is, well, you're never going to access it, so it might take a day to get your data, but at least it's cheap. There's a Glacier tool on there that lets you just back up that NAS to Glacier over time. And that's actually what I do for off-site backup on my NAS. And that's because it's so big. Yeah, you can image a NAS, but it's not like a computer where, oh, the NAS died, I'm gonna restore it. Especially if you're in RAID mode, drives might die, and you'll still continue on. So if you want to, you can unplug the NAS from the network, plug it into your computer directly, image it that way. You can image a mounted drive directly. Those both will work fine. So does that make sense?
Well, the one thing, it doesn't seem that the Synology can function itself as an external USB drive. I can plug a USB drive into it and it'll see it, but
you can't plug it in and see it, because as I remember when I first set up my Synology, I was able to plug it in and copy files to it. That was not the case.
No, I can plug in an external drive to it.
Yeah, I understand that, but you can't plug it into your computer. Okay.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Well, then mount it and do it that way, I guess.
Copy the directory structure of this.
Well, you can probably. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to image a mounted drive. From the point of view of the operating system, it's just like a local drive. It's just slower because it's network speed. It's 100 megabits or something like that.
There are also these third-party apps on it.
Yeah, I use the third-party apps. There might be a very good app for doing that precise thing. That Glacier app is a third-party app, I think.
Yeah.
No,
well, the other thing with them, though, is the Synology backup tool does not actually get those apps and their settings and back them up.
Oh, yeah.
Some third-party things. The only ones that it will actually back up are the first-party Synology.
That kind of makes sense. I honestly think that the Synology... And this is true of all NASs. Nobody ever thinks, oh, you're going to back up the NAS. You might back up the data on the NAS. Let me just look here real quickly. How does that? Let's see. And why didn't Hyper Backup work for you? What was the issue with Hyper Backup?
Well, for one, it's a proprietary backup, so I can't.
It's a blob.
Make sure they're all there.
It's a blob. Yeah.
And like I said, it doesn't get any third-party apps, but maybe that's a foregone conclusion. I'm not going to be able to move those.
Yeah, it's not. See, it doesn't see anything but your NAS volumes, your data volumes. So.
Okay.
It does have a check mark where you can back up your I see this, your applications, but that's kind of that's not a good solution. I think if you mount the drive, well, I don't know what you'll see. They may hide, for security reasons, they may hide. In fact, I bet they do. The system, when you mount it using Samba, they may hide the system folder and all that. If that's what you want to back up to, I don't know how that may be hidden. That's an interesting question. Yeah, every solution I've mentioned will back up the data fine, but if you want to back up the system folder, the DSM folder, and all the apps in there, I don't know. Anybody know? We have a lot of Synology users. You can see Resilio Sync is one of the third-party apps. You can use that, and that does back up the data, the structures, so you'll see it's not a blob. It'll synchronize, but it's folder by folder. I think they assume nobody's going to want to back up 8 terabytes. I use Glacier. That works quite well. SF.
It's only temporary, too, until I can get the RAID rebuilt.
I see. That makes sense. You want to do an image so you can put it back on later. I get it.
Yeah.
Anybody in the chat room, see what he wants to do? He wants to image it so that he can put it, he can go from RAID 10 to RAID 5 and then restore it. I think really the preferred way to do this is it destructive to go from 10 to 5?
Yeah, it won't do it. There is an option to change the RAID type, but 10 to 5 is not an option.
Okay. So you have to erase it. I think their preferred choice would be you reinstall DSM and reinstall the apps. But all you want to save is the settings and the data, right?
Yeah, I want to see. I can do it. It's
you got me.
Half day of work, Yeah, okay.
Keep listening. Somebody will do it in the chat room or visit the website.
Appreciate it.
Have a nice hike.
Thanks, Leo.
See you, Matthew. Leo Laporte. The tech guy. All right, little quick snap security quiz for you. A listener dropped by yesterday, wrote me a little note. We were talking about the imaginary dangers of having a cell phone tower or a 5G tower in your backyard. Actually, there's a whole article in the Wall Street Journal this week about our little town in the north of us, Santa Rosa, and how nobody's allowing anybody to put a 5G tower in their vicinity. They're afraid of the radiation coming from 5G. Turns out the telecommunications company don't have to ask your permission, and that's really irritating people. I said yesterday, in my opinion, there is no danger, and so do most physicians. There's no danger, certainly not more dangerous than a regular cell tower, and there's no danger from cell towers and the radiation they put off. No particular danger. No more than the cosmic rays that are hitting you every minute. So apparently one of our listeners disagreed, and he's dropped me off a show from our local Pacifica radio station on EMF and cell phone radiation. And he dropped it off on a USB key. So you can listen to it. I put it on here. Here's the pop security quiz. What should you do with a USB key a stranger gives you or you find in a parking lot or on the ground? What should you do with that USB key? Should you put it in your computer? No. No. USB keys can be very dangerous. It is trivial for a hacker to put malware on a USB key. Malware you can't even detect. If you want to Google bad USB, this is a problem. Almost all manufacturers, almost all companies that make USB keys have this problem that you can modify the firmware. Yeah, there's a little bit of firmware on a USB key. You can modify it so it's invisible, but it will hack a computer that's any computer you stick the key into, any computer. It reminds me, remember when a few months ago, a woman was trying to sneak into Mar-a-Lago, and she had like bad papers and many cell phones and a variety of USB keys, and it was pretty clear that she was a spy or had some weird intent to get into Mar-a-Lago. And the Secret Service finally, she got pretty far. They finally stopped her, and the report was from a Secret Service agent, she had a bunch of USB keys, so we put one in one of our computers, and it started doing all sorts of things, so we quickly unplugged the computer. And I thought, do they not train you? These are dangerous. In fact, their hackers have a term for it. They call it a candy drop. If a hacker wants to get malware on a company's computers and they can't get it in through an email, they'll just drop some USB keys in the parking lot. And there's very few employees who, having found, look, it's a 32 gig key, that's great, free, will not plug that into your computer. The minute they do so, faster than you can unplug that computer, it can infect your entire network, encrypt it, and say, you owe me $1 million. So I appreciate the thought of dropping this USB key by, but there's no way I'm putting that in the computer, any computer. I'll send it to the Secret Service. Let them try it. 8880. There, you got it right? Did you pass my pop security quiz? Good on you. Steve in Chatsworth, California. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I had like 3 questions. I think 2 will be pretty straightforward.
Go ahead, and if I run out of time, I run out of time. I'll answer as many as I can.
But what's a good way to convert like old photos and like those real movies, like from the 70s we had?
Oh, man. Well, you can do it yourself, but it's hard and it's time consuming. Honestly, the best way to do it is there are many, many service bureaus. Scan Cafe is one where you put them in a box, you send it to them. If you're nervous about putting it in the mail, there's one in your town. In fact, we used to have a camera store that would do it. I don't know if there are any camera stores left in the world, but you can easily find somebody. You just bring all those reels and the photos and everything, and they'll convert it. They'll put it on a disc for you or upload it to a website. If you don't want to spend the money to do that and you've got copious free time, you certainly can do it yourself. The easiest way to do stills is not a scanner. I think a lot of people say, I'll just scan it. That takes so long. you'd have to be retired to even consider it. But you could do it fairly quickly, and I've done this. If you have a decent camera, it doesn't have to be a super-duper camera, but a decent camera, point and shoot probably is fine. A tripod or something you can put that camera on so you can position it exactly. An easel or something you could put the images on, and you could take pictures of them. Make sure the lighting is clear, there are no shadows, that it's sitting upright. Your digital camera probably is higher resolution than any scanner. And the nice thing about that is once you've got the setup, the tripod, the easel, the lights, all you have to do is put a picture on the easel, take a picture, take it off, put the next one, take a picture. It's very fast. You could do a picture every few seconds. There are photo scanners. Our sponsor Epson has a really nice photo scanner. It's called the Fast Photo. It has at least a tractor feed, so not a tractor feed, a document feeder, so it can take those pictures and do it pretty quickly. But all of these are going to be somewhat expensive. Scan Cafe is a site that does this. There are lots of them. And okay. You just put it in a box. Now the movies on a reel, the Super 8, the movies Dad took, that's a little more complicated to do yourself. They sell boxes. Basically, the technique is you project the movie and you shoot it on video. And they sell boxes that you can do this. You can shoot it with a video camera or even your camera phone, and you'll get a pretty good copy of it. But honestly, it's probably better, in my opinion, if you can afford it, because it can cost, depending on how much you have to scan, it can cost some money. But Scan Cafe is very good. I would recommend that. Question two.
Question two is you got all these different new cloud services where you can store all your pictures and movies.
Yes.
Suggest some that are, everybody says they're all great, but can you suggest any?
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually use quite a few of them. If you are a Microsoft user, if you use Windows, OneDrive, which is Microsoft's solution, is probably the easiest because it's integrated not only into Windows, but into Microsoft Office. So you can save your Word documents, for instance, automatically as part of the program to OneDrive. So I'd look at OneDrive. If you're a Google guy, as many of us are, Google has drive storage too called Google Drive. It's very affordable. And I think it's very good. There's probably the best-known third-party solution is called Dropbox. And you can compare prices. They're all roughly comparable, although at any given period of time, one will be cheaper than the others. The problem is that, it's a competitive market, so the others will drop their prices if somebody's cheap. I think Google Drive might be the most economical. There are some additional, Apple has its solution too. If you're an Apple guy, called iCloud. It's the most expensive, of course, because it's Apple. But they all work roughly the same. There are other tools that are designed for more unusual environments. Most of these systems, the four I mentioned for sure, have a folder, the Dropbox folder or the iCloud folder, the Google Drive folder that's automatically synchronized. But if you want arbitrary folders, like I want that folder and that folder and that folder, there are other systems that will do that more directly. The biggest one is privacy and security, because in all of these cases, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Dropbox, Box.com is another one. In all of these cases, a rogue employee can see your data. Your data is not encrypted on their systems unless you encrypt it ahead of time. And some people don't like that idea. So there are some solutions that are encrypted. My favorite on that is Tresorit, Tresorit. And there's another one called Spider Oak that's very popular. They all have roughly the same features. If you don't have a reason to use something else, I would go with one of the big four, which is Apple if you're an Apple user, OneDrive if you're a Microsoft user, Google Drive if you're a Google user, and if you're none of the above or all of the above, Dropbox or Box.com. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, that's an interesting idea. He says, I could plug the thumb drive into a smart TV. What do you think? Is that a good idea? It's probably safer because a smart TV can't do much. And it seems unlikely that somebody would have... It's certainly possible to program this to hack a smart TV, but they have to know the brand. So that seems unlikely, right? All right, that's a good try. That's a good idea. It is on my network. You're right, Joe. Good point. You'd have to write code that was designed to use the Smart TV OS. Chromebook, maybe a little safer, but again, I think it's really the safest thing is to throw it out. Ah, I love this song, and Big Pee Wee, he plays it every weekend to say thank you for letting us be in your living room or your car or up on that mountainside on this weekend. Big Pee Wee, our musical director, thank you for doing such a great job. Thank you to Kim Schaffer for answering the phones. Thanks to you for listening and calling and making this show possible. I really appreciate it. I'm pretty lucky to get to do this. I know it. I know it. I'm grateful. PJ's been hanging on for the longest darn time. PJ, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just a gassy old guy, so I'm sorry it's taken so long, but thanks for hanging on. From Butler, Pennsylvania. Hi, PJ.
Hello, Leo. I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure. Thank you for calling.
I have a short story and a question for you.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I'm from Butler, PA, which is about 30 miles north of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
The Pirates, Penguins, Steelers. But more important, I'm the older brother of a person who called you last week, Myron.
Oh, yeah.
And he had the discussion about his CRZ. Do you recall
yes,
that?
and Sam Abuelsamid brought that up just an hour ago on our car thing. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, he was a little worried about the safety, and we reassured him that CRZ is a safe vehicle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and my little short story is I replaced my Windows XP machine about 5 years ago with a Windows 8.1, and it's been running, pretty well. It's in Inspiron Dell, but all of a sudden I've got the dreaded flashing light, amber light of death.
Uh-oh.
And it would not boot. It would not boot up.
Okay.
For some reason. So I took it to my computer guy, my local guy who is an IT guy for a local company, and then he works at home, when he's done working his regular job. And he had not seen this condition before, which really surprised me. So to make a long story short, he had it for a couple of weeks and said, well, I think you need a new computer. I said, well, what about, could it be the motherboard? Well, it could be that, he said. So I was trying to get an economical solution. So I went against...
The problem is it's hard to know what it could be, and that his job is to figure out what it could be. It sounds like he just stared at it and scratched his head for 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Leo. When you press the diagnostic button in the back, then the fan would start up, but it still wouldn't boot up.
Okay. So it could be so many things. First thing I'd look at, the cheapest and easiest fix is the power supply. And honestly, it could be as simple as that. So you swapped out the power supply?
Yeah, and the power supply worked, but it still wouldn't boot up.
Okay, good. So that's the first thing. And ideally, if you find a good shade tree mechanic, he's got some power supplies. He can just plug one in to see if it is without you going out and buying, installing one. He can do it. You don't want to do this yourself because there's some risk to power supplies, but that's what he should have done. And then there are other diagnostics he can run. It could be something as simple as the RAM has worked its way out of the slot. And without RAM, a computer can't start up. What if it's just kind of worked its way out? Or maybe I've had this exact symptom because when I put in a new hard drive, I accidentally flipped the cable. In the old days of IDE cables, you could put them in wrong. And as a result, the thing wouldn't start. I got a yellow light, but it wasn't the motherboard. This is the problem: is all that yellow light says is I can't go on. Did you get any beeps?
No. I'll tell you what we actually ended up doing. I actually bought a new motherboard from eBay, and we actually put it in, and it's worked fine ever since.
Yay! So he was right.
Yes, my other brother, who's a little more knowledgeable, he said he thought it could be the memory cards. That, it might have been dirty or not making good contact. So I actually now have a spare motherboard, which is the original. Maybe
you do, or maybe it was the motherboard. It's a complicated environment. It's hard to know exactly what went wrong. The problem is if the computer. So normally, if the memory isn't there, the computer will still start up. It'll go through what we call POST, the power on self test. And then it'll say, well, I can't do anything. I don't have any RAM. And it will beep some codes, the post codes. And those post codes will tell you what's wrong. But whatever was wrong with your system was so seriously wrong, it couldn't even get to the power on self-test.
Right. Okay, but it's working. Now, my computer guy said if you buy a motherboard, you don't know how long it's going to last. There's no guarantee that it would last. But so far, it's been going strong. So
did you get a new one?
Fingers crossed.
Did you get a brand new one?
It supposedly is an OEM.
Okay. There's no reason it shouldn't last. If it lasts the first 3 months, it should last forever. But as you learned, sometimes so many things can go wrong. You might have had a power surge through the house. If the power goes out and then comes back on and there's a big surge, that's enough to fry the sensitive electronics on a motherboard. That could have been as simple as that. So you're right. Yeah. There's no way of knowing what'll last, but nobody has any certainty about any of that either. So or in anything. So.
Well, at least I got my hard drive back up, but it was expensive.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I could have done it probably myself. Okay, my question is, I've seen these little Wi-Fi boosters for around $30. They claim they're supposed to extend your Wi-Fi and give you faster internet speed.
Are they active or passive? Do you plug them in and turn them on?
That I'm not sure.
If they're passive, they're junk. If they're active, they might work, but what they'll have to do is it's what's called a Wi-Fi extender, which is you turn them on and it gets the Wi-Fi signal, boosts it, and sends it on. That is not the preferred way to do it anymore, because it cuts your speed in half. It's a half duplex, so at half the time it's talking to your base station, half the time it's talking to your computer. That's why most of the time these days people are using mesh router systems, which don't have that problem. Same kind of idea. It looks the same. You've got a base station, and then you've got additional units, 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on how much space you have to cover. But it's full duplex. It can get the backhaul without slowing itself down. There's a lot of other things that mesh does. So, but it depends what this Wi-Fi extender is. There are people selling stuff, You can buy a sticker you put on the back of your phone that's supposed to make your cell phone reception better, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's snake oil. If it's something like that, forget it.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, and for $30, it's probably not really.
Probably not a Wi-Fi extender. Yeah, if you want to look at Wi-Fi extenders, there is a great place to go. We recommend it a lot. The New York Times has a hardware review site called The Wirecutter, and they have a review of the best Wi-Fi extenders at thewirecutter.com. So take a look at those. Don't buy something unless, if it sounds too good to be true, and definitely don't buy it on Amazon. Because there are a lot of third-party scammers on Amazon. It's a big problem.
Okay, something else occurred to me real quick here. You had a caller here asking about copying old technology. What about slides? What's a good way?
Yeah, that's a harder one to do yourself. You can buy slide scanners.
Yes.
But they're really slow. I mean, honestly, it could be a minute per image. And if you've got thousands of images, that's a long time. And these good slide scanners are not expensive. That's when I would definitely. We had a bunch of family slides. We had a bunch of Kodak. Remember those old carousels? We had a bunch of carousels, maybe a dozen of them. And finally I said, look, Mom, I love you, but we all want these pictures, because we'd be fighting over them. And I said, would you mind? And my sister took them into a bureau and had them scanned. It was a few $100. But now everybody's got a copy of these old slides, and I'm really glad we did that. So that would be my recommendation. Excellent. Yeah, just send it. And again, Scan Cafe's one, but there are many. And if you don't like putting it in the mail, there are certainly you might have to go into Pittsburgh. I don't know if Butler has one, but Pittsburgh will probably have a place you can bring them, and they'll do it for you.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thanks.
Good to talk to you. Say hi to your brother. Thanks, PJ. Bon voyage to Kim Schaffer. She's going to take a couple of weeks off. She's going to Bali. Have a great trip, Kim. Thank you, Big Pee-wee. Thank you all. I'll be back next week. I'm not going anywhere. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Have a great Geek Week. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWIT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.